Hey, what's up, everyone? James here with a fun announcement. I am gearing up to launch the next Great Range Athlete 6-week challenge. Yep, it is time to build the next Great Range Athlete team, and we're planning to kick things off in early September. So if you're looking to build your physical strength, your endurance, and your mental toughness for the backcountry, then listen up, because this is for you, and I want to see you on the team. My Great Range Athlete Challenge is not just your average fitness program, though. It is tailored specifically for hikers, backpackers, hunters, and any outdoor enthusiast who just wants to level up their performance in the mountains. Because better performance in the mountains means more fulfilling and confident mountain adventures when you're out there, right? No more showing up at the trailhead and wondering if your physical fitness is up for the task. No, you will show up there confident, knowing that your legs will take you to the summit and back again. So with the Great Range Athlete Challenge, you'll get weekly workouts strategically designed to help you get stronger for the mountains. You'll get nutrition guidance, weekly team coaching calls, outdoor skills and knowledge guides, and access to the team accountability app and more. Now, I'm a firm believer that when you have a team around you, you are more likely to succeed. Therefore, you will not have to go at this challenge alone. After all, that's why it's a team, right? Instead, you'll be training virtually alongside a coach and a community of like-minded Adirondack hikers, all pushing one another to new heights. And you'll make a lot of new hiking friends in the process. So the first Great Range Athlete team, known as the Marcy team, shout out to the Marcy team. It was an overwhelming success. So I'm super excited for this next batch of Great Range athletes to see the same results that they did. So the Marcy team had people from all over the Northeast and down the East Coast, all the way to Florida. We had men and women in their 20s. We had men and women in their 60s and everywhere in between. We had Adirondack 46ers on the team, and we had people who had never hiked a high peak but were training for their first mountain. But every single person on that Marcy team had the same goal: to get stronger so that they can have better mountain adventures. And that goal will continue with this next batch of Great Range athletes. So once again, this is a 6-week challenge beginning in September. Now, space will be limited, so if this does sound like it's up your alley and you want to reserve an early bird slot on the team before the official registration opens up, send me a DM on Facebook or Instagram with the word Great Range Athlete, and I'll reserve your spot. Now, if you're not on social media, just shoot me an email, james@46outdoors.com or 46of46podcast@gmail.com. I'll get them all. Send me the word Great Range Athlete and I'll reserve you a spot. And it is going to be another very fun and very impactful 6-week challenge, and I look forward to it. All right, speaking of Great Range athletes, let's get to this episode. This is the 46 of 46 podcast summit session, where we'll talk all things Adirondack, backcountry, and beyond. From high peak stories and adventures to trail tips and tricks, we'll dive deep into the heart of these mountains and the people who passionately climb them. Adirondack maps and spruce traps to bushwhacks and backpacks. It's all here on the 46 of 46 summit sessions. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 46 of 46 podcast. Summer is still in full swing up here in the Adirondack Park, albeit we are on the other end and fall is approaching. The temperatures have started to drop. The super hot temps are unfortunately kind of going away a little bit, but it's also giving you a taste of what's to come here in the Adirondacks, because life doesn't get much better than the fall in the ADK Park. So it's still exciting. However, we are still in summer, and that has me super excited. But today on the Summit Sessions, I'm bringing in my friend Brian Collupy, who just completed the Lake Placid Trail Challenge. It is a Spartan Trail Challenge that was held at Mt Van Hoevenberg. Yes, one of my favorite mountains in the Adirondack Park. And quite frankly, it has my favorite summit in the entire in the entire park. If you haven't been, Mt Van Hoevenberg needs to be on the top of your list. But Brian just completed a 50K, and it is a fantastic feel-good story. And when I heard it, I said, I have got to have you come on the podcast and tell this story, because it has everything you'd want in a good movie. I met Brian when he joined my Great Range Athlete Team program, and it has been a delight getting to know him and watching him grow and watching him improve, not just in the mountains, but in his everyday life. And it showed in his performance at the Lake Placid Trail Challenge. So we're going to get into it. Brian is an Adirondack native, so it's exciting to have him on the show. But Brian, first off, thanks for listening to the 46 of 46 podcast, and welcome to the 46 of 46 podcast.
Thanks, James. Glad to be on the show.
Yeah, dude, it's been a fantastic journey getting to know you over the last few months. You were a part of the Great Range Athlete program, and going hiking with you, and watching you continue to improve in the mountains. And then now you did the Lake Placid Trail Challenge, but we'll get into that. First, I want to hear a little bit about you and let the listeners know, give us a little bit of your background. Where in the Adirondacks are you from? Where'd you grow up? And how did you end up getting into the outdoors and, all that entails here in the park?
Well, I grew up here in the Adirondacks in the town of Mariah, New York, in the village of Fort Henry. I lived here pretty much all my life. Went to school at North Country Community College. And then I went down over to Albany for a little bit, and I missed the mountains, and I moved back up here. My family, they're not really big hikers. They were really more like, my dad's more into hunting, so I got into hunting and fishing. I got more into hiking. It started with Belfry Fire Tower here in Mariah. It's up in Mineville, New York, like another small hamlet area. And then I went over towards, I wanted to see Hurricane Mountain because I heard that it was going to fall over. And from there, I looked over, saw a lost pond, and I said, I want to find out why there's a pond on top of a mountain. And someone emailed me about the Fire Tower Challenge, and I started to work my way through the Fire Tower Challenge, and that took me probably 8 years. So that's when I started when I was 24, and then I finished it, like I said, 8 years later. And the funny part about these challenges there was no challenges, and then all of a sudden they all popped up, and then I just kept going after them all over there too. So I finished, I think it was between the Fire Tower Challenge, Saranac Sixer, Lake Placid Niner, I think the different triads over there for the Tupper Lake Triad, and the Lake George, Round the Lake Challenge. So I just kind of kept going after all the different challenges.
I love it. And, dude, the Adirondack Park, these hiking challenges, that is our brand. I say it all the time. That is what we do, because the culture here is to hike mountains, to climb mountains, go to the summit, take your picture, enjoy the view, and then come back down. That's what you do here. This isn't really a backpacker type of spot. It is a peak bagging type of spot. I know some people use that phrase peak bagger as a derogatory term. To me, it's just very descriptive and direct, and I'm a direct kind of guy, so I like it. But yeah, I think hiking challenges are fantastic, and I think the fact that is the Adirondack brand is good, and it gives you, I always tell people these lists, sometimes people crap on lists, but more people like them than don't. They just give you some direction. They say, hey, here's a great group of mountains that you probably wouldn't have known about prior, and look at you, that's exactly how you got into exploring the park that you grew up in as well, because here's a list someone put together and said, hey, this will be a great adventure. Here it is. And it just gives you an itinerary, something to shoot for, something to complete start to finish. So I think it's awesome. So of those challenges, talk to me. What was your favorite one?
My favorite one.
What was your best, the adventure as a whole, we'll say?
The adventure as a whole had to have been the Fire Tower Challenge for me, because it's such a span of my life for 8 years. But when I finished the challenge, it took me 3 months to send in for the patch. And one person, she asked me, she's like, "Why haven't you sent in for the patch?" And I'm like, "I don't want it to be over."
Sure.
And it took a while to actually convince myself to send it in, and just yep, there's another challenge, there's another adventure that awaits. Let's close the chapter and move on. So So that to me was always the favorite, was closing out the Fire Tower Challenge. It was, and actually ended up finishing it down the Catskills, because you had to hike the 6 towers down there, and I finished it on Red Hill with my friend that went down there. So it's really special to me.
Yeah, and it was your first one, so that makes sense that would be that would have hold a dear place in your heart. I love it. What do you do with your patches? I know you don't put them on your backpack because we've hiked together lately. What do you do with your patches?
So I have what was it? There's actually a frame that it's like on my wall, and I put them all up there for different challenges that go up there. So I think I actually have between the Lake Placid Niner, but it ended up being like different other like just hiking challenges too, because I have my Wilderness First Responder patch that's up there. I have my Great Range Athlete patch that's up there. So it kind of ends up being like your hiking achievement wall that I have in my dining room.
Yeah, it's great. I think the patches represent they're just a tangible representation of, like a series of adventures, of something that you did. When you hike, you get the patch, right? Like obviously we're all adults. Some of us are kids, but we're all adults. It's like our life will go on without a patch. Obviously we don't just go hiking for the little piece of cloth. But when you do hold that piece of cloth, it gives you a sense of accomplishment because you started something and you finished something. But also when you look at that patch, it represents what you did. And then you go back in your brain. It's like it locks certain memories up. It's like having a bookshelf. Each book's like, oh, that's right. When you pick up this book, you remember everything the book talks about. And I think the patches kind of represent that same thing. And I love watching people's walls grow when they have in a frame like you do, and just seeing the different mountains or the different challenges, knowing, that is exactly, it's a tangible representation of what you've done in the outdoors. And those memories are dear. So I think that's great. I also love that you put the Great Range Athlete patch in there. I'm honored that you did that. Very cool. And that's kind of why I, with that team program, that's why I did the patch and the sticker thing, right? Because like that's the Adirondack brand, as I said, the patch and the sticker. So because it represents what you accomplished. So very cool. How was your trip through the Lake Placid Niner, by the way? Take me through that.
Through the Lake Placid Niner, some of the mountains I've done before. So, but I revisited them for the challenge. Mm-hmm. Some of them I'd never heard of. Particularly, I think Bear's Den, and a few of them over there too. And I don't know, I really enjoyed them. I understood, like, it's this build up to get to the high peaks. Like they're the smaller ones to kind of build your legs up and kind of get that momentum going, so you could kind of get to the high peaks. But no, I really enjoyed them. I never heard of Catamount. I think Cobble Hill. Mm-hmm. Cobble Hill is actually, there's a funny story with this one real quick, is I got to the top of the summit and my pager went off for the fire department, and I ran back down the mountain, got in the car, and was able to make it back in town, and got into town and started fighting the fire. So that was my closing for the Lake Placid Niner. Was it ended with all right, now get to work and go to the fire department.
I love that. There's a life lesson in there for you to unpack. There's definitely a lesson being told to you by the mountains in that moment. That's very cool. What a fun story. The Cobble Hill, fantastic hike, fantastic mountain. And that's the thing, like I was just talking about with the challenges and how they give people an itinerary and they bring you to places that you probably wouldn't have gone to if you didn't know about the challenge. You hear about the challenge and then it brings you to all these different places, different mountains for different experiences. And I put that together for the to give you that linear progression to build you up so that you are high peaks ready. And I think it does that. And Catamount is definitely one that challenges people. And I hear on people's registration forms all the time how Catamount was a challenge. Catamount was hard, this and that. And anyways, it definitely prepares you for the high peaks in a great way. But let's talk a little bit about your recent trail running adventure. So how did you get into doing these Spartan trail races and Spartan races in general? Give us a little bit of that story, kind of how you ended up going from hiking some mountains to competing in these Spartan races.
So for the Spartan race, it was 2019 and my friend had ran one the year before, and he brought me into this OCR, so obstacle course racing group. that's like Loving Life, which is over in Vermont, where I work. And I started training with them, and I went over to Killington and ran the sprint there. And it was probably the hardest race I had ran at that time. And it was just a sprint. And I was determined to come back and do better, because I'm like, there's no way it should have taken me, almost like, I think it was 3 hours or something to finish a 3 mile course. So I trained up, came back the next year, did better. And I'm like, all right, I want to keep doing it. And COVID hit. I also got injured. So I was kind of recovery year. And a lot of people were saying, because I got hurt training for the Spartan race, that I shouldn't have, it's like, yeah, you should probably not do this anymore. I'm like, it was very much I wanted to continue. So once I healed up, I went to the next Spartan race in, I think it was 2021, down in Bethel, New York. And it was actually, there was a sprint race, and there was a Spartan trail race. And I was wondering what the trail race was. Excuse me. And it was a 10K around Bethel, New York, which is like the Woodstock festival area where they had the concert. And I just kind of fell in love with both of them again. And from there, I just got really serious about, okay, can I go further? And so, the sprint, which is a 5K race, went into a 10K race, went into their Beast series, which is a 21K, which is about 15 miles. And from there, they have this one achievement called the trifecta. And that's in 1 year, if you can do a sprint super, which is 10K or 6 miles, and a beast, you get the trifecta. So how I accomplished that was I raced the beast race in Killington, Vermont, down in New Jersey at Mount Vernon. I raced the super, and then over at Bethel, New York, I raced the sprint. So I got my trifecta out of that one. And then last year I did it all in 1 month. I think it was the month of September. But I had planned on doing more races, but with life and the schedule, it just ended up being one. So this year, my goal was to run the next one up from a beast, which is an ultra beast down in New Jersey, again, down at Mount Vernon. So their version of an ultra beast it's a 50K, but you have to run their beast series twice. And then from there, do a super and get like 2 trifectas, but also the trail series that they have. I wanted to get their trifecta. So do a 10K, then they have a half marathon, and then they have a 50K. So that's how I kind of ended up on the road to Lake Placid. It was on this year's list to finish out the trail trifecta.
Awesome. Now it sounds like your kind of your journey to running these races was a very organic progression on itself. You just tried this thing, and then you did it again, and then you did it again, and then it grew to trying this other thing, to getting the trifecta, and it's just continued in a very natural manner.
Yeah.
Very good. Now, so you do these trail races, these Spartan series. Now, what made you sign up for the Great Range Athlete program? So obviously you're already, pretty physically fit to be doing this sort of thing. What was it about, joining the Great Range Athlete team that attracted your attention to want to actually pursue it and come train with me for 6 weeks?
Well, what was happening was I was plateauing. So something wasn't clicking. So even though I had read all about ultra marathons and different other athletes, training over for OCR for 2 days a week, I still wasn't getting stronger. I wasn't getting faster. And when I went down and did the Ultra Beast in New Jersey, I did not complete it. I ended up getting to the second lap, and I couldn't make it past the first aid station. My legs, I could barely walk. And what I was finding was after 15 miles, my leg strength was gone. And I was finding I was struggling a lot more with hills. And I really wanted to learn, how do you kind of keep your endurance up for for the mountains. And when your program came up, and I always listen to the podcast, and I saw you kind of did a little bit more with strength training, and I hemmed hawed a little bit, and I have nothing to lose. And it's a good opportunity to meet you and work with you. So I said, let's give it a shot and see if it helps.
Awesome. Glad to hear. And has it helped?
Yes, it has helped immensely. Part of it was I never did any data tracking onto what type of calories I was burning, or what nutrition I was really taking into, so when I looked at kind of getting ready for the program, collecting the data, then going into the program, I found that it was the perfect complement for each other between OCR and your program, because I had the obstacle strength and getting the technical work in, but then I was getting the overall body and leg strength up, so I could go into the hills and could get more into it and a little bit more. And then my OCR community is very supportive of me, and then the Great Range Athlete team is just super supportive too over here too. So it was just nice to have this like overwhelming support from both sides of the community.
Definitely having the support when you're competing in anything, or just going after any sort of goal, or it's an immense difference in your success rate. So I'm glad to hear. And it was fun. It was fun watching the Great Range Athlete team support one another and challenge each other and overall build that camaraderie. And I think it all showcased when we all hiked, or not all of us, but a bunch of us hiked Giant and Rocky Peak Ridge together. It was great to see it all come together. And you crushed that hike. You just went up, went down. So fantastic stuff. So I'm glad to see that it's been helpful for you for both your athletic pursuits and then your just general mountain adventure pursuits. It's been awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the Lake Placid Trail Challenge over at Mt Van Hoevenberg. Tell us a little bit about what this was, and then we'll get into the story itself. But let's start with just giving us a general idea as to what this race entails, how long it was, and what made you say this is the race. I'm going to go do this big thing that you've never done before.
So for the Lake Placid Challenge, the reason why I chose Lake Placid to do a 50K in is I had ran the race 2 years before when I initially came into Lake Placid on a half marathon. So I was familiar with how the race course was going to be laid out. I also, looking at how to do the trail trifecta, I was going to run the half marathon down at Big Bear, which is close to West Point, New York. I was going to do a 10K over in the Poconos, which is down in Palmerton, Pennsylvania. And I said, why not finish the big race up in Lake Placid and have the 50K up there? It's going to be in August, and it's a day before my birthday. It's perfect. So that's why I chose it for that time, and to run the 50K up there.
Awesome. So take us through it. What made the Mt Van Hoevenberg? So, or let's say this. What was unique about the course at Mt Van Hoevenberg? You've obviously done lots of these. What did you find to be a unique element about the course itself?
A unique element about the course itself is that you're in an Olympic training center. And then the back half of it, you're going down a bobsled run. So there's that kind of nostalgic feel of, the Olympics and everything, kind of the feel of it over there too. And Mt Van Hoevenberg, to climb up to you get to like 300 feet from the summit, but when you get over to the other side, like the views that, are on South Fields or South Meadows. And it's just really, like I said, it just felt like home. For that one over there too, especially when you travel to all these different places for race courses. It's like the only time when Spartan comes into the Adirondacks over here too. So that's why it just feels, to me, it just feels like home. The challenge of it though is just, it's very much it's nothing but hills. Like you're going up and down hills, you're going over, so it does make it a little bit more challenging than just kind of a rolling plateau a little bit. Like Big Bear is more of a very rolling hills versus going straight up, which is I think it's more of an Adirondack mountain theme.
Oh yeah.
straight
the
up.
Adirondack way, right? Just go straight up the mountain. Why not? That's it wouldn't feel like an Adirondack race if it didn't just go straight up the mountain. That's great. Now, what you said you ran down the bobsled run, so you're like actually literally on the bobsled run. Is that correct?
So not on the bobsled run. It kind of runs the like I'm trying to think it's the bob. It's the road that runs parallel right to it.
Okay.
So
you're just next to the track itself. Okay, got it.
You're next to it, but they're still running people like in bobsleds, like, because they're just going through their normal operation during the race. So you're kind of like running by it over there too. And then somebody just like whooshes by you on a bobsled. Nice.
No, that's cool. That definitely gives it that Lake Placid Olympic vibe. Probably gives you gives it a nice unique feel from a racer's perspective. So
definitely
50K. That's like 31 miles ish.
Yeah, it's 31.4 miles. Yeah.
All right. So let's get into the race. So what I want you to start with, what was your prep going into running a 50K? And, spoilers, you've never run a 50K before. So this was a new endeavor, but what did you do to prepare for such a race? And then we'll get into the actual race itself and what went down.
So prepping for a 50K, I did a little bit of running, but it's kind of a mixture of you're doing like 3 miles kind of like every other day, doing a little bit of rucking. And that's like a build up prior to the race. So I'm talking like 2 weeks before, a week before the race, I do a taper week. So usually for 2 weeks out, you pick a day to do a big run, and a big run's more like 15 miles to 20 miles to try to get your legs ready for that type of a distance, but not overdoing it so you hurt yourself and now you can't compete. So that's why you do it 2 weeks before, and then you do a taper week where you're doing like, a little bit of light running, a little bit of like leg workouts. But the key thing to a week prior to the race is you're focusing on, getting your food, you're eating right, sleeping, getting enough sleep in, and hydration, making sure that you're drinking enough water prior to building up over to it, not just drinking the night before.
Awesome.
The other part that is usually getting to the day of the race is checking the weather. And so we did have that tropical depression that was coming up. So part of that was kind of checking to see if the roads were going to be closed, the route to go through. The other part is doing a prep of, is, your equipment and food. So you can bring food in there. So, do you have like enough gels? Do you need to order some more gels? Is your equipment up and ready? And it's also equipment you've used. So it's not like you're going to go out and buy something new that you've never used and use it on race day. There's this golden rule, which is you'd never try anything new on race day. So there's that part of it too.
So let's get into the actual race. Take us through it. So you're there and the 50K starts, and you're about to begin this amount of miles that you've never done before. What was going through your head as the race was beginning?
So what was going through my head as the race was beginning was, don't go too fast. It's like the number one mistake anybody can do is everybody's at the start of it, and they're just going to run as fast as they can through this, and they're going to burn out 3 miles in. So part of it was to have a nice, good, steady pace. I know a lot of people talk about being in zone 2. Like zone 2 is just where you can carry on a conversation and still be moving pretty fast over there too. So that was my main goal, was to stay in zone 2 and go the distance. So part of it was just like if other people are passing you, let them pass you. Don't just start running, starting to try to outrun everybody.
Sure. I actually had that same kind of mentality when I did the Lake Placid half marathon last summer. I found my pace. I stayed at it. And if I passed someone, I passed someone. And if someone passed me, they passed me. It was of no cares. It was just, I'm going to focus on this exact pace and just stay at it. So I can relate to that sentiment. But all right, take us through this race, kind of take us from start to finish and tell us the story and, how it all played out, because it's a great story, quite honestly. So let's get into it.
So running through the first part, I'm going through, and it's just more like light woods, and it's kind of like, a little bit of like rolling hills, a little bit of elevation. But overall, it's just a fantastic day. It's like 70 degrees outside. And we're the first group that's out there on the trail. So it's muddy, but it's very manageable. And you kind of feel that like my legs are starting to feel a little bit tensed up over there too, and it just ignored them. It just kept going, and moved through the trail pretty easily. But again, everybody is really kind of blowing right past me over here too. I get to the first aid station. Everybody's kind of bundled up over there, and I just keep going past the aid station. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to keep going. And as I'm heading over to from the next part of this, and that after the first aid station, which is like at 4 miles, getting closer to the second one, which is about 8 miles in, it really starts to get muddy. Like we were talking about that, the tropical storm that hit over there too really did a number on the entire trek. So it's just mud all over the place. I get up to the top of the hill and I get to the second aid station. And there's still really nothing there. I have plenty of food. I'm feeling very good. And I keep heading down, and I end up getting into this bog. And the whole racetrack is flooded. And it's nothing but water all the way through. So you're trying to make your way through and trying to get it over, any type of rock or whatever. And the very last part, I end up falling in. And I fall in. I hit solid ground underneath it, but I'm all the way up to my hips in water. I get out, feet are soaked, everything's just, so you're just like, all right, well, there's nothing I can do. And I just keep trudging on. Like the type of footwear that I have like Hoka running shoes, and I use Darn Tough running socks. And I cannot swear enough by Darn Tough, because like 10 minutes later, dried right out over there too. I kept continuing on over, and about 11 miles in, you get to aid station 3. And this is when you're back over across the road, which is like the entrance over to Mt Van Hoevenberg. And you get up to like the top where it's starting to get a little bit higher. And the elevation's starting to pick up. So I get over there, I forgot if I ate something there. And I just kept going. Every aid station I had in my mind of, I could not stay. Like you could only stay for less than a minute and then keep going if you were going to stay at all. Just because my mentality for this race, especially the distance and the time, you had to keep moving, because if you stopped, your legs were going to your body was going to go into recovery mode and not start to function. And the other part about the 50K that's unique is there's time cutoffs. So overall, when we were explained about this, was you had to make it back to the Mt Van Hoevenberg transition area by by 12:30 in the afternoon. And what was it? So if you had to be there by 12:30, or else you were done for the race for the whole day. So you started at 7. So I'm like, you have plenty of time, but don't waste your time. So continuing up the hill, and I was really starting to feel fatigued. And I knew these hills from the last time I did it, where it was like, all right, this is going to roll down this net. And I just ran into more mud. And, now you couldn't run. You could only kind of slightly walk fast through it. And it was just it was really just, I can't emphasize this mud. It was just everywhere. It was like the theme of the day. It's just mud. We get up over to the reservoir, and then heading up over, and there's like this other connection to like this normal trail, which was, it's always interesting when you run into regular hikers that are just heading up there, or just people on a normal day in Mt Van Hoevenberg. And there you are, you're kind of like, you have your running gear and you're completely covered in mud and sweat. And they're just kind of giving you that look of like, so this is how you enjoy your Saturday?
Totally.
Yes.
They're not expecting to see some people that are covered in mud to the level you are, and they're probably then questioning, do I want to keep going up this mountain right now based on what I'm seeing from this guy and these other people here? But yeah, totally get it. It would throw me for a loop too.
Yeah. I was just out here for having fun. I seem to have come across this. No. The final aid station, which is at about the 13-mile mark, is right when you have to ascend up Mt Van Hoevenberg. And now this is on the Olympic Center side. So thinking about when you hike up the trail side for the New York Trail side, and that's when you can see South Meadows and this and that. So this is when you're at if you think about if you're at the summit of Mt Van Hoevenberg on the trail side, and if you were to go on the other side and drop down 300 feet, this is where that trail is.
Okay.
So at that aid station, I believe it's a mile up and a mile back down. So you climb up all the way up to kind of the top where there's that transition for the last 300 feet up, and then you loop around and then you run back down the mountain. So I get up to that part, run all the way up to the top, and now I'm starting to get caught up by people running the half marathon. So a lot of the leader group for there. So I just let them pass by me because I know they're all running for first, second, and third place. So they're trying to get into the top 10, and I'm making my way down the mountain, and I'm let
me pause you. Let me just jump in for a second so we have some more context. So how long time wise and how many miles in or kilometers, if you want to say it that, would you have been around the point when you turned around, when you got to the top, not the top of the mountain, but like where you would turn around, like roughly how long into the race was that point?
You're at about 13 miles.
Okay.
When you get up to the top and you're about ready to turn down. Like when you get to the transition area, you're at 15.7 miles. So I'm trying to do the math real quick of like kind of where you are in there.
Sure.
But you're kind of right up about there.
So at this point, like 13 miles in, like that's obviously a long time of running. You're a half marathon in terms of distance. How were you feeling despite the mud? Despite being up to your waist in mud seemingly multiple times now, how were you feeling physically and how were you feeling mentally at that point? So we'll talk about kind of the point as you turned around at the top of Van Hoevenberg.
I was feeling I was really starting to feel tired, really starting to feel fatigued. I was trying to block it out because and especially when you got people running by you and they're just at full tilt. And it's very easy to kind of get angry at them, like, I guess, because you're kind of like, hey, I'm struggling here and you're going to, pretty much run me off the road. But I also know they're running their race. I'm running my race. Let them go by, collect yourself, get ready to go. And continue to make my way down the mud. So a lot of it was compartmentalizing up at the top of, these guys are running a half marathon. Their race is over. You're not even halfway through yet. So there was a lot of kind of mental talk to myself to be like, don't get angry, focus on what you need to do. And that's when I got down off the mountain and started to make my way down the bobsled run and started to look for the transition area as I was making my way down there. But yeah, and it's very much, I had to kind of compose myself a little bit and be like, where are you right now? So heading down into the transition area, part of me was hoping that there would be, some food and some more stuff over there too. I got down in there and this one, this older lady, she's like directing, she's like, you're part of the 50K right here. And there's a little square for the transition area. There's a little thing to refill your water. And that is it. There's no food. There's nothing else over here too. And I'm like, okay, all right. Just refill my water. But I'm like, I'm not staying here. I'm getting out of here. So I'm refilling my water. And there's another racers that are there. I saw a few other people that they're in the 50K. They were kind of, kind of dealing with their stuff. And I'm like, man, I really wish I had some type of hydration stuff. I left my Noon tablets in there. And this lady that was over on the side, she just goes, hey, do you want, I actually got some of that like liquid IV stuff. Do you want to try some of that? I'm like, yeah. And she hands over there and she goes, I got a spare one. She's like, I'm like, here, hand that over. And this other guy was filling up his water, and
was that a racer
hey,
or a volunteer or someone that was there that gave you the liquid IV?
so she was supposed to race, and she ended up rolling her ankle, and so she was there supporting her friend.
Okay, got it.
So she was just kind of like a spectator over there too, which I don't really think you're supposed to actually take help from anybody. But at that point, I was like, okay. But yeah, and then one of the other racers that was filling up his water over there too, because I filled up my water and I was there for probably 2 minutes, and I'm like, all right, I'm heading back out. You heading out? And he's like, yeah. You mind if I race with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I, we had a fist bump, and the next thing we start jogging out. I'm like, hi, my name's Brian. What's your name? My name's Eric. And he's from Long Island, a CrossFitter guy. And I'm like, all right, so what's your strategy for this? He goes, I don't have a strategy. I said, well, how are you feeling? And he goes, well, my legs are pretty locked up and everything else like that. I'm like, okay, so the strategy for this one is we're leaving now. We arrived at the transition area at about it's 11:15. So we're out for the cutoff. But right now we have every aid station has its own cutoff. So we have to be at aid station 1 by 2:00. So let's shoot to try to be there by 1:30, and then try to kind of do that for each aid station over here. And so I'm like, so just kind of keep moving, keep sipping on water, try to do anything else like that. And so we just walked and talked, kind of the whole way through. That was kind of the game changer there. Was actually having somebody to go through the second part of the race with. So as we're running through, and I asked him, how long were you in the transition area for? And he said he was in there for 20 minutes. And I'm like, dude, why were you there for 20 minutes? And he's like, my legs cramped up, so I went over to my gear. I have like a massage gun. So I was using that. And I was going to quit. And then you showed up, you just get some water. And then you say, hey, you're heading back out. And I was like, this guy's going to do it. I'm going to go with this guy. So that's why he started running with me, which is pretty cool.
I love it. That's great to hear. That's feel good moment there. But that's awesome. So
I said the strategy for right now is like, again, this guy's the same height as me. Like we're both about 6'1". And so I said, here's the thing. You're just going to start, just do, don't really jog, but do some, very power lunges uphill and then run downhill. I'm like, this is where we're going to save our legs, because you have to save it for the last push at the last part of this. Because the key thing is to try to finish by 5:00. And so that was our strategy. We ran downhill. Like I said, kind of did power, hiking up there. And like I said, it came from the great range athlete part of doing lunges all the time. Especially with a weighted backpack. So, going uphill and using that one versus jogging really helped. And so the trouble I ran into, besides minor cramping a little bit here and there, was I tried to eat it was like a Stinger waffle, and I gave one over to Eric, and I could not swallow any food. Any solid food would not go down. So you'd try, and then you'd cough it back up, and you'd almost be dry heaving. And I'm like, yeah, I do not want to throw up right now. So I switched over to using gels, because I had some gels that were left over, but nothing real substantial.
Have you experienced that before in any of your races where you can't swallow, you just can't eat actual food?
I only experienced that this year in New Jersey, where it was the same thing on the second lap. So once I went beyond that 15 miles and I was trying to eat, it was like your throat was just too dry, and you couldn't eat food. It's just something odd that I guess I have to figure out later.
Did that have you concerned at that point? That you're struggling to get fuel into you, and you still have such a long way to go. How did that impact you?
That was definitely a concern. I was nervous that I wasn't going to be able to properly take in extra calories, and I would end up, bogging out. So bogging out would just be, I can't keep any fuel in. So your body doesn't have anything left to burn. So, you just crash. So you can't walk, you can't run, your body just seizes up. So I was very concerned that was going to happen. So I did have 6 gels that were on me over there too. But again, they're more just like sugar packet gels type of a thing. So it's just more, I knew I needed something solid pretty soon. So we kept running off, and we ended up getting over to the next aid station in no time. And so when we got to the aid station over there too, what was it? They had a bunch more gels. They were like the different types of gels than I had. They're kind of more like a pasty one over there too. So those made a lot of difference, because I had probably 4 of those. I drank a Coca-Cola. I don't drink soda at all, but I knew I just needed the caffeine and the sugar. So I just like downed Coke, which again, I know I broke rule number 1, don't try anything new on race day, but I was definitely concerned that I just needed as much fuel as possible. But after the first aid station, it was just kind of like, I mean, Eric and I were already in high spirits, because we were just, I'd like to say that we had intellectual conversations, but it was not. It was very much back and forth, just keeping each other fired up.
Which makes sense. You needed at that point. And what time did you get to that aid station? I know you said you had to get there by 2 and your goal was to get there by 1:30. Do you remember?
I think we got there by right around 1:00.
Oh, great. So a little ahead of schedule then.
Yeah.
In terms of your strategy.
Yeah, I think it was right around 1:00 over there too. So we were making good time over there too. And, we talked a little bit with a volunteer, and then we took back off. And I was just kind of like, again, it was just, I felt like I was the hype man for Eric going over there too. Cause it's just kind of like, I'm like, yes, we're back, baby. We're ready to go. Let's go. And we take off from the aid station, and we're jogging on down over there too. And, we're heading up and over. And, like I said, it was just, like I said, the second part of that race was just so different than the first. The first race was just me running. This one over here too was just me and my new friend just hanging out. And we're like, hey, we're just going to finish this thing. And, we get up to the top, and we're heading up over the mud, and we get over in no time at all. We're at the second aid station. And the second aid station there, all the volunteers there's about 3 of them. They're all having lunch, and, the chit chat, and I grab another Coke, and I'm drinking that over, and, and then they're going, well, we're sorry guys, but you guys must be hungry because, you've been running all this time, this and that. And I'm like, I can't eat food. I'm like, I nearly threw up over here too. So right now the sight of food is just, and this one guy, I think he worked for the Van Hoevenberg staff, because he didn't have Spartan stuff on. It looked like he had the Mt Van Hoevenberg apparel on. He gave me the best part of advice, which he goes, all right, you see the bag of chips? He goes, don't eat the individual chips. Just crush them up into like little bits of crumbs, open them up, and then just pour the crumbs in your mouth, and then just, do a water chaser down over there too. So that way there you can get the salt in you over there too. And so I grabbed the little bag. It's like, snack size bags. It was a bag of Cheetos, and I crushed it up, and I'm like, I'm a man of culture, and, for the culinary arts, I'll try anything for science here. So I crush up the Cheetos, pop them open, and I start eating them. And I swear, I don't eat junk food, but those Cheetos were like the best ever. I was just more like, oh my God, Cheetos. And I'm like, Eric, you want some Cheetos? These things are great. This is awesome.
That's
and we're
great.
Heading down.
It's also funny. Yeah. I mean, you picked a chip that's like not really like a salty chip. You picked Cheetos, which great. Obviously, we all like Cheetos. Crunchy or puffed? You didn't clarify it.
Those are crunchy. Those are crunchy.
Okay. So again, you didn't even pick like the salty chip. Like if you picked a potato chip, I'd say, yeah, that makes total sense. And I could picture it being crushed up and like being able to just like pop it in your mouth, drink some water, swallow it, get that salt and you get some carbs in you. But you went with the Cheetos. So, well, yeah, I mean, I guess you are a man of culture. So, you did what you had to do. And obviously it was a pick me up.
I mean, it ain't easy being cheesy.
It ain't easy being cheesy. Chester Cheeto. Very good. All right. So you guys slammed a bag of Cheetos, maybe 2. And then, all right. How are you feeling at that point? So, you said that you were kind of the hype man helping psych you guys up and keep your spirits high. So was this a big pick me up after Chester Cheeto came to save the day?
Oh yeah, no. It was definitely, this was the height. This was you didn't know it then, but this was the pinnacle.
Awesome. It's all downhill from here. The pain train is coming. But you had Cheetos now, so life is good right now.
Well, you know how the mountains, they don't care about how you feel. Well, they don't care about, so down the hill we went, and there it was, the bog that we had to cross again. And the strategy I had was, I'm like, I'm going to go on the other side and I'm going to make my way through it. And I'm making my way over. I take one step and I'm about 6 feet into this bog. And I take my right foot, and all of a sudden I just go down. And I mean, I went, my right leg went completely all the way down into the mud. And I'd read about Adirondack quicksand before, and I just got sucked right down into it. So my whole leg goes in there, and then every muscle on my leg from my foot all the way to my hip instantly cramps up, every single one of them. And I'm just swearing, I'm trying to keep it balanced, and I'm thinking, this is it. This is where I die. So again, going from happy, I'm over to, no, I'm done.
You went from Cheeto Brian to Bog Brian, and those are two very different Brians.
Oh yeah. So Eric's a little bit ahead of me. So I yell out to him, Eric, come back here. I'm stuck. I can't get out. I've fallen and I can't get up. And so he runs over through the bog. Somehow he navigates his way over. And he gives me a hand, and I'm trying to arch my foot just so I have my shoe pointed down, because I was nervous that the bog was going to take my shoe, and then I'd have to finish with one shoe. So I get all the way out and I get my leg back up, and it's still cramped up, it's locked up, and I'm trying, not to massage it or do anything with it, just trying to get it out and get it, just let it relax for a second, and after all the swearing, all the commotion, and I'm sure the people at the aid station heard it, I stand back up and I reach into my pocket, and the Cheetos that I had left over there too were now all covered in mud. And I'm like, God dang it took my Cheetos.
Unbelievable. Adding insult to injury. Hey, you can't trust the bog, and the mountains don't care about you, but they will do what they do. But that's actually it's funny now. Obviously, in the moment, it was not funny, but now it's funny. Now we can laugh and have a good tee-hee about it.
I think it was still funny because it was just more of I'm like, how did people at the aid station know that guy was okay? Well, he stood up and said, my Cheetos are gone. They even took my Cheetos, Eric.
That's great.
So it was like, they took my Cheetos. So we make our way through the bog, and we kind of a little bit more diligent, and getting back up. My leg is still just cramped up and everything. So I'm kind of doing the jog hop about going over. And
you know how many miles you're in by this point, by the way, like at this round 2 of the bog?
We are at about 25 miles.
Okay. So you're well over the hump. You're, kind of like the final push, final 5 or 6 miles here. Okay.
Yeah. So we're heading uphill, and we're going over, and I started talking to Eric about, I started saying, like, they did research about, and I actually started talking about books, like Admiral McRaven's book about, and I said, they talked about when they couldn't break a SEAL team. And the reason the instructors knew they couldn't break a SEAL team was they were in the mud, they're on an island. They say, hey, you quit right now. And he goes, everybody just started singing. And he goes, and everybody just sung the same song. And in the book, he wouldn't tell me what the song was over here too. I'm like, Eric, I've tried this experiment because I've seen at a Spartan race, somebody was doing, what was it? They were doing a sandbag carry up the hill, and all of a sudden they started singing. What was it? From the Hercules movie, the Disney version of that one over there. What was it? I'll go almost anywhere. What was it? To find somewhere I belong. And now Eric's just looking at me going, I don't know Disney songs. And I'm like, and I said, I'm like, at Palmerton, I started singing the same song. And it was at a sandbag carry, and everybody started singing with me. So then I started singing, of course, right over there too. And of course, this guy's probably looking at me going like, this guy has absolutely lost his mind.
Oh, they definitely were 100%.
So, but that was the thing was, So I just started kind of just singing as loud as I could over there too. And the weird part was my leg went from cramping to it got back to normal. And then we were back in business. And we were moving this whole time. I mean, we weren't just standing around at the end of the bog. We were still continuing on. Moving our way through everything. But again, like Eric was talking a little bit, but I just started just kind of like, I was just dropping like every type of like motivational thing that I could think of. Like, I started going into the race director's speech over year 2. You have to meet, Eric and Brian, if you don't make this transition by 5:00 over year 2, if you do not make it over year 2, this and that, it'll be over. If you do not make this over year 2, if you do not make this bog. And Eric and Brian responded with one word, if. So it was, and then I went to the man in the arena speech too. And it was, I kind of talked about, I'm like, I'm obsessed with arenas. And he's like, what do you mean you're obsessed with arenas? I'm like, well, think about it. Life's like a sporting show, right? You have everybody that's watching you do something over year 2, right? You have people up in the, the cheap seats yelling at you, going, you shouldn't be doing this anymore. Why did you do this over year 2? You have shareholders, that could be like family members going like, is this really worth the risk, whoever? But what matters is you are in the arena. You are fighting. You are fighting to get through this over here too. And that's what matters is you are the man that is in the arena. It's like between psyching myself up and psyching him up, it was just, we were on to aid station 3. So aid station 3 was about 27 miles in. And I mean, I am exhausted. I mean, as much as I'm trying to hype up, it is just wearing on me. And we're heading up over. And at this time, we're getting into, it's right around, I think it was 3:45 to get to the 5:00 cutoff. And it is just really slow going because my legs are really locked up and there's a lot of down trees on the side of it. And the race course completely changed. It was, everybody had gone through this race already. So now it was just like, imagine a trail just got stampeded through and it's all mud. So we're moving through and time just keeps ticking by. And we get to about, I think it was about 4:15, 4:30. We get to that last push to the final aid station, which is aid station 4. And what was it? Eric looks at me and he goes, I think I can make it down to the bottom before the 5:00 cutoff, but I have to leave you. It's like, are you okay with doing that? And I said, I don't know if I can make it. My legs are really locked up. I'm going to get there. I'm like, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going. But if you think you can make it, go. So he takes off and goes faster. I'm kind of struggling to climb up. There's this last part. There's this really high pitch before you get to the summit approach. And I was just crawling up to the top to that last aid station. And it was, after he left, it was really like, there was that moment where you start hearing, why don't you just quit? There's the aid station. Just say to the guy, hey, I'm done. I'm not going to make the cutoff. So it was that battle between the two, quit and don't quit. And I just said, don't quit. Keep going. Keep going. You're hurt. Like, are you in pain? Can you not continue? Of course you're in pain, but like, you can keep going. And so I get to the aid station person, go over, grab another Coca-Cola. And he goes, well, the drill. It's up and down. And he goes, try to get back here. Before, what was it? As fast as you can. So I get hobble all the way up there. And my legs can't move. I'm just like, up is just not really working, but I'm still moving. I get all the way up to the top and I'm even looking to see Eric and I can't find him anywhere. So he's already just long gone. And I get up to the top of the summit, like the transition, that turnaround. And I come back down. I'm like, all right, we're downhill. This is going to be easier. It is not. It was just nothing but pools of mud. So it was bad before, and now it's just nothing but water and just sticky mud underneath it. So trying to you couldn't even run, you couldn't jog, you could barely walk through this stuff. And I have had it. I just went off on a tangent of like how much I hated mud. It was just, and I finally just crawl out of that place and I'm heading down. I look at my watch. It is 2 minutes to 5. And I get back to the aid station before you go down the bobsled we're on. And it was, I thought it was the race director, and it wasn't the race director because I thought it was just going to be like, it's over. Yep, just hop in the car, you're done. And it was actually the person from aid station 3. And I'm like, I want to finish. I'm like, I just want to finish this out right now. If that's okay with you. And he goes, and he was from Canada. So he just had that, very French Canadian accent where he's like, it's not about the time anymore. It's about completing the course. If you feel you can do it, go. And so away I went.
There is a lot of wisdom in that statement. It's not about the time. It's about completing the course. That's fantastic.
So I started jogging, like just a light jog down the hill. And about midway through the bobsled run, my leg locked up. I mean, I was just like, I don't know. I ended up just kind of like, I don't know. It's like a walking limp to keep going until it finally passed. And I was just going like, I just want to get down there toward the end. I'm like, but I was also just, I was very much compartmentalized. I was just like, no one's going to be down here. They're packing up. They're going home. It's 5 o'clock, and I said, hey, this is just like Killington. The first time you tried the Killington Beast, and you got down, the race was over and everything else like that. I'm like, hey, it's just the way it is, but you need to finish this. You're not just going to peel off and go to the truck, finish the whole thing through. So I get down to the lodge, and there's this last little hill you had to go up. So again, up was not working. So I'm just, using the handbars, using everything to get up this part. And I get down to where the road kind of looped around. And the last part of this race was you had to loop around, go under the culvert and up and over. And as I'm approaching the center, all I see is one person go over and say, "Hey, here he comes." And everybody just like runs over to the side and they all start cheering. They're like, "Brian, come on, you can make it over here too." How do these people know my name? And I go down there, and it was a lot of the volunteers, a lot of the Spartan staff. Eric was there. And, I can get a jog going a little bit over here too, not too fast. And I'm just going over the race director. What was it? Chris, he's over there clapping over there too. And I'm like, this is so tough. And he goes, "You're tougher. And you proved it today. All you got to do is make it up and over and finish this." What the? I kept going. And I went up the hill. I could hear the announcer going over. What was it? Justin. He's over going, "And our final racer is coming around the bend over here too." And I'm just like, I just kind of trying to keep up a good pace. And I got all the way to the end, and I crossed the finish line. I think it was about like 5:22 for when I crossed it over there too. So it was just like I said, everybody was cheering. I got high fives. This one Spartan staff member, she had a medal, and she said, "I'm very sorry. We don't have any more 50K medals, but this is a 10K medal. And after this, you should take something home. We can mail you." And I was like, James, I was trying not to like cry because I was just overwhelmed with that they were all there. I was expecting this place to be empty and for me to just go back to the lab. And they all stayed. They all stayed to support me, and they don't know me. And, I was pretty overwhelmed. And then the announcer, he kind of did a quick interview talking about it, which I think is probably going to be equivalent to interviewing Forrest Gump, because it was like, "How did you prep for the race today?" And you're like, "I did a lot of running." It's just, I don't think that's probably my best interview.
Well, we'll give you a pass given what you just went through.
But yeah, no, it was, and then it was, I talked to them all for a little bit. And then I didn't realize until I got to my truck how covered in mud I was. It was just, I was just covered in mud completely from basically the waist, my feet all the way down, up and everything. So I got to the truck and got, like I said, got on my sandals and then drove home. And that was the end of the race day for me.
It's an amazing story. And did you miss the cutoffs like officially? Like I think I must have missed that in your story. Or did you make all of them, or did you miss some of them?
So I made all the cutoffs. The final cutoff was 5 o'clock.
Okay. And you finished at 5:20 or something like that.
and I finished at 5:20. And what I didn't like, what the race director said in the very start of the race about the cutoffs was, he says, it's at my discretion. So if you're putting in effort, I'll allow you to continue. But if you're sitting on the side taking a nap and eating a sandwich, you're not going to, you're pretty much done for the day. Which it was also going to be kind of amazing if you were taking a nap and eating a sandwich at the same time. But it was just more.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Inspirational story, man. That's a true story of persevering, a true story of grit. Here in the Adirondack Mountains, it tests both of those things pretty much anytime you go out there. So that was awesome, dude. Proud of you, proud of your accomplishment. I'm proud that you didn't quit, even though every inch, especially of those last 5 or 6 miles, lesser men would have quit. So I have nothing but respect, and what an inspirational story. And I also love so much that the volunteers and everyone stayed. They knew there's someone else on the course. He's pushing. And it's always so exciting, that part. And I always say that when I talk about Ironman, people like Ironman, it's here in Lake Placid every time or every summer. And the excitement level, around the final hour, is so exciting. Seeing, it's fun seeing the people who finish, early or just regular times, but that last hour where the race is about to be shut down, and seeing those people coming in, it gives me tingles just thinking about it. Because I've been up at the finish line during that hour many times, and there's an excitement level. Those are the people who are pushing themselves to the very brink of what they can do. And, you did as well. It's super exciting, dude. Congratulations to you.
Yeah, thank you.
So what's next?
What's next? So what's next is this weekend, there's a Spartan race that's down over in Massachusetts that I'm attending to. Then the following weekend, I think from the Great Range Athlete team, I think Randall's coming up. So I was going to do Marshall with him. Then end of the month, we got the next part is going to be, I think they got the Light Up the Night part, which is an event for the Fire Tower event. And then Killington comes up in September, and that would complete one trifecta. And then the next trifecta would be, I think since I didn't do the New Jersey one, I think I have to go to Blue Mountain in Canada in October. And then Annie's got the Lake Placid Classic over there too. And I was going to sign up and do that with her.
Awesome. So you are a busy man, continuing to push yourself, continuing to make yourself a little bit better. But yeah, dude, inspirational story. Speaking of Annie, shout out to Annie. But for the listeners, when Brian told this story in the Great Range Athlete team thread, team video thread, it had one person in tears listening to it. So it's a feel good story, dude. It's just, that's what it is. It's this story that everybody can relate to, pushing yourself so hard and so hard and so hard, and kind of leveling yourself up to overdrive that you didn't even necessarily know that you had. But when you do, amazing things happen. And this is a prime example. So again, congratulations on doing it, and congratulations on being able to push yourself when the chips are down, and when it was every ounce inside of you, I'm sure, was like, just stop, go home. But you said, no, I will not do that. And now look, you get to have this story forever and know what you're capable of, both in the mountains and in your life and in your mind. And it's just super exciting. I love it. And I love that the race director kept it open, and that they were all cheering for you. Like, it has everything that a quality movie has. I mean, that story is everything you would like to see in a movie. So great stuff. So as we start to wrap this episode up here, there's always 3 questions that I ask pretty much everybody that comes on the summit session. So I'm going to ask you as well, and you'll have a unique perspective being having grown up in the Adirondacks. First question: what's something unique that you always have in your backpack when you go out hiking? Unique to you?
Unique to me. Yeah. So the unique thing that I carry is, they always say carry double the equipment. So if you ask me how many headlamps I carry 3 headlamps. I have 2 that are modern, and the ones I use and the other one is it's an older one that my grandmother gave me, and I take that with me because it's like I'm taking her with me on all these different trips, and that was the one when I hiked up Lake Placid, up at Whiteface, and I ended up getting there stuck after dark, and I looked through my gear, and there was that headlamp in it, turned it on, and I was able to get out of the woods. So yeah, I always keep that headlamp with me.
Very cool. A sentimental item, and also it has come in handy. That's very cool. I love that. Second question. What do you feel makes the Adirondacks a unique place? So you obviously are a resident. So why are you still here? What keeps you here? What keeps you exploring this park? Why do you feel it's a unique place?
I will never be able in my lifetime to see everything the Adirondacks have to offer, even living here. And there's something about that, that whether it be the stillness or the emptiness, or whether the fact of like you can hike the same mountain multiple times and it's going to feel different every time. So it's like this mystery you'll never solve, and it just draws you back into it. Even when you move away from the area, it calls you back. So that's how I feel about it.
I love that. It is a mystery, and I say that all the time. The Adirondack Park is mysterious, and it's a mystery that you're right, you will never solve, and that's what keeps you coming back for more. You articulated that very well. And my final question, Brian, why do you hike? Why do you go put your body through these hard, races that are so long, running through the mud on Mt Van Hoevenberg? Like, nobody's forcing you to do it. No one's forcing you to climb mountains. What is the reason that you keep coming back for more and putting yourself into those situations?
The main reason why I do a lot of this is so it's really this kind of two parts. Like for one, from my body, it keeps me in shape, so I'm able to do everyday things at ease, but it also keeps me in shape for volunteering at the fire department and being able to serve others. So there's that part of it. And then there's just this connection that I feel where when I go hiking, I can go out there and my mind will just be going a mile a minute and this and that. And then after I get to the summit and coming back down, I just have this sense of calm that happens over from being in nature, and that's why I do it every day.
Awesome stuff, dude. So where can people find you online, Brian?
They can find me, like I said, on Facebook over here too. And then I think on Instagram, like I said, I'm not really too big on the social media stuff, but I am on Instagram and on Facebook. And
where can they find you on Instagram? What's your name?
I think it's like ADK. What was it? ADK guy 1946 or something like that. I just kind of made up some name.
I love it. I love that. That tells us everything we need to. Don't reach out to Brian on Instagram. You probably won't find him, but maybe reach out to him on Facebook if you want to ask him further questions. But awesome, Brian. Thank you so much for coming on the 4646 podcast. Thanks for signing up and joining and being a core member of the Great Range Athlete team too. From my perspective, I'm honored to have you, and being able to hear this story of perseverance, of grit, and how it all took place right here in the ADK and on arguably my favorite mountain in the ADK. It was super exciting. So thanks for being on the show, and congratulations once again to you.
Thanks, James.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Summit Sessions here on the 46 of 46 podcast. Head over to 46outdoors.com to check out everything I have to offer there, from an ebook to climb the 46 high peaks to guiding and much more. 46outdoors.com. That's 46outdoors.com. And check back on Fridays for new mountains, new stories, new guests, and new episodes right here on the 46 of 46 podcast. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at 46 of 46 podcast. You'll find me. You probably won't find Brian, but you'll find me. But that's going to wrap up this episode. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock walk, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails, everybody.